welcome back to our channel Grim Reading Kings, where we tell you all about anything spooky and strange. We upload new episodes every single Monday along with an uncut, unedited video to Patreon. Also, if you want to see our ugly faces, we upload to YouTube every Friday. In this series, we have been entertaining you with stories from dark history. For the third and last story in this series, I dug deep into the darkest stories and didn't need to travel that far into the past to even find a truly disturbing and controversial form of psychosurgery that in all too many cases left the patients in a variety of states. That brings us to the tale of the dark history of lobotomies.
So my name is Tom.
My name is Sammy.
And Tamsin.
Where we talk about anything and everything spooky and strange.
In this series we discuss film curses,
Dark history.
Murder mystery.
local stories,
Chapoke.
Get out right now.
That's how you kill someone.
I'm going to do a warning.
actual human skeletons.
Psychopathic tendencies.
The last thing to know is the actual injury.
Right, let's go again. Oh.
Right, so I'm going to do a warning. For anyone who doesn't want to know the details, don't worry, because there aren't that many gory details in this. It can still be enjoyed by anyone. I will tell you when to skip ahead though if you don't want to hear those details, which will just be the beginning. So kind of skip forward to the history part, but I will tell you when to skip.
I'll put a little timestamp below.
Yeah,
When Tamsin says skip now to the time, I'll put a little steppity-doo.
Should be a jump scare there instead.
Oh my god,
No, can't do that.
Alright. Husbands, are you unhappy with your wives? Do they not cook and clean? Do they disagree with what you say? Do you have sinful urges towards other men? Do you have trouble sleeping? Or have a child who's out of control? Then we have the cure for you. The new form of psychosurgery that's shocking the country with its results. There's even two types of the procedure, a prefrontal lobotomy or a transorbital lobotomy, which can take less than 7 minutes and have you home by the end of the day. This life-changing procedure uses no nasty anaesthetic and doesn't even need a trained surgeon to perform it. So come on down to Walter Freeman's office today for a lobotomy where your brain is easier to fix than your toothache.
Yeah!
Sounds great, sign me up.
Right, skip ahead, all squeamers. Just go away.
Just go away. For
Just
YouTube, you'll see the timestamp for podcast. Sorry.
Podcast.
And anyone who's going to listen, just be warned, it is fully in detail of how a lobotomy is done.
So watch me faint in a minute.
Yeah, just be careful that you actually want to know this. The two types of lobotomies are the prefrontal and the transorbital lobotomy. The prefrontal lobotomy came first, and this is how it's performed. The patient is put under with anaesthetic and the front part of their head is shaved. 3 marks append on the head, 1 on each temple and 1 on the top in the middle. Here, here, and here.
Oh, on the top.
Yeah.
Oh,
1, 2,
why do I
3.
there? Oh.
1, 2, 3. The marks are joined and another line is penned in the centre towards the nose. Anaesthetic is injected into the first side on the marked line. An incision is made through the scalp and the inside is scraped away to reveal the skull, which is then marked with a chisel. A thick metal rod is placed on the marks and tapped with a mallet, causing a small hole. A clasp is used to hold the wound open, while a buck and bit, which is a small handheld drill, so it's like this, and then you go like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's a big old windy drill.
Yeah.
Is inserted into the skull and drilled until the brain is revealed. The procedure is mirrored on the other side. The prefrontal lobe is then sliced away from the rest of the brain, and other cuts are made in this section of the brain. The incisions are then irrigated with normal saline. This is to help prevent a hemorrhage. The incision is then deepened. A long metal rod is inserted all the way through the brain until it can be seen through the other side.
I didn't realise he actually... I thought, no.
That'd a cure you right up.
The procedure is then mirrored through the other incision. An oil is injected into the extremities of the incisions. This is to show the exact location through an X-ray. This lobotomy can take around an hour without any problems. By the way, I actually watched a lobotomy to get this information on how it was done.
Oh.
I don't recommend doing that.
When did they last do? Or are you going to cover that?
I'm going to cover that.
Sorry, I'll be quiet.
Are you a different person from watching that?
Yeah.
Has that affected you in a long...
Would you recommend it? I mean...
I'll perform one and then I'll let you know.
I've got to say, one of the things my brain is missing right now is metal bars and oil.
Yeah.
Oh, you better get to
Holes,
cooking and cleaning. This is what's going to happen to you.
I feel like I need it. Probably make me smart.
I mean, yeah.
Wow.
The transorbital lobotomy does not use anaesthetic. Instead, a portable electroshock machine is used like a pair of headphones on the temples. It causes a seizure that will subdue the patient.
That's the one that I know of. I didn't realise there was one that they actually...
Yeah, that's the original. This is... Yeah, this
Right,
is
later.
the other one.
Yeah, okay.
A pick-like instrument is placed on the patient's tear duct and tapped with a metal mallet to the back of the eye socket and pierces the thin bone that separates the frontal lobe. The pick is then inserted into the frontal lobe and used to sever the connections in the brain. This procedure can take less than 10 minutes. That's it. That's all your gory details.
Good lord.
Oh,
Okay.
cool. Welcome back, people that...
Yeah, welcome back
Yeah.
to all the squeamers. This is the history part. Right, yeah, I think I need to breathe after that.
Yeah, where's my vodka? That, right, it's something about tear ducts.
That's there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
That's where your tears come out of.
Yeah.
That's the name, yeah.
My
So
tears
it's
just come out
those
my
tiny-
eyes anyway.
No,
No, you've got tiny little dots on the inside of your eye. That's your tear ducts.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Because they'll fill up your eye. It's not just
Yeah.
they come from anywhere.
Right. Well.
So it's a tiny little hole that it went through.
And they just get a hammer and...
That's so cringy.
Anyway, we have the squeamers now, so we can't
Oh yeah.
mention these things.
Oh,
They
sorry.
don't want to know. They
Use
left us. 'cause they
marshmallows
don't
and strawberry laces and then it's all better.
Yeah, we don't talk about strawberries either, because they're just as bad as lobotomies.
Thompson is not a
I
strawberry.
hate the strawberries. Oh, those little strawberries. Those lobotomy strawberries.
They're strawbotomies.
Came out of nowhere. The strawberries. Even worse than a
They're
strawberry.
your friend, you little
That's
strawberry.
fresh strawberry.
However.
However.
Oh, that's got to be right in the fucking...
Okay. Right. Okay, this is the history part of lobotomies. The first lobotomies date back to 1891, when the Swiss psychiatrist, right, Gottlieb Burckhardt.
Oh my god.
What a name.
there. I'm not even sure that's right. Performed surgery on patients with severe schizophrenia. The procedure in its infancy was much more intrusive than the one I described. Originally, parts of the brain would be removed. Burckhardt noted that after the procedure, patients were much more quiet. I think if you removed part of my brain, I'd probably be quiet.
Yeah, it might remove the bit that you can talk.
Well, the frontal lobe is like kind of your personality,
Oh, really?
so you wouldn't really...
Let's remove all of that.
Yeah. He intended for this treatment to be a last resort for people whose conditions were so severe that nothing else had worked and they had no quality of life in the state they were in. At the time, the medical community rejected this idea. That was until the 1930s when Portuguese neurologist Antonio Egas Moniz,
What a name.
perfect,
Yeah.
developed the leukotomy and began promoting the procedure across Europe, even though there was no actual evidence that this procedure even worked. The popularity of the leukotomy caught the attention of neurologist Walter Jackson Freeman, who later teamed up with neurosurgeon James Watts. They worked to modify the procedure to make it less invasive. As Freeman was not a surgeon, Watts performed the surgery, while Freeman would sit next to him and guide him through the procedure. Freeman was a charming man and the media loved him, and soon the lobotomy was called a miracle cure. The public would seek out Freeman for lobotomies for their loved ones, even for the slightest of ailments, it seems. But the reason for coming up with the lobotomy was truly to help patients in asylums. And Walter Jackson had seen the effects for himself when his grandfather got him a job at St. Elizabeth's, an insane asylum in DC. Walter Freeman's grandfather was a well-renowned surgeon who worked during the Civil War, and Walter idolised him and strived to be just like him, along with his work ethic. He cared for all his patients and he worked non-stop to cure them. Walter struggled to get along with his father, who was the complete opposite. Although he was a successful doctor, he complained too much for Walter to respect him. And when he became sick, Walter found him a chore to look after. He spoke of being relieved when he passed away. Walter had wanted to be a photographer growing up, but with such success in the medical field running in his family, he was pushed into medicine. Eventually, though, he found his place in neurology. In the 1920s, while at St. Elizabeth's, Freeman saw many horrors. There were no drugs or successful treatments for any of the patients there. Many of the patients would be in straitjackets morning, noon and night. Others would be naked and sat in their own waste. If clothed, they would tear their clothes straight off again. They would use insulin therapy on patients to reduce sugar levels to 0 and induce a seizure. Water therapies such as ice baths for hours on end. Literally said 4 hours in an ice bath.
I know.
That'll sort you out.
Submersion therapy, where the patient's head is submerged quickly from hot to cold water. Cold blankets were wrapped around them as they believed that cold water was a good deterrent for aggression. They'd even spray them down when they got mad and then leave them soaking, freezing and naked. And what mostly got to Freeman was the sheer amount of patients there really were, and with no good treatment, no one was going anywhere. Patients would live out the rest of their lives here, 30, 40, 50 plus years, and so Freeman dedicated his life to curing these poor people.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Has Eddie survived at all? Holy Christ.
Yeah. Awful. Walter Freeman married Marjorie Lorne Franklin in 1924. Together they had 6 children. Freeman travelled a lot and loved hiking. He'd bring his kids on all kinds of walks, take them fishing and on cross-country drives. The marriage didn't seem to be a happy one, with Marjorie an alcoholic and Freeman having affairs. But the darkest day of Freeman's life would be the 8th of July, 1946. He took 2 of his boys and a nephew to Yosemite National Park. Right, because I'm not American, when I first saw that word, I was like, Yosemite?
Yosemite. Yosemite.
Yeah,
It looks like Yosemite, right?
It does.
And then I heard them say Yosemite, and I was like, oh my god, I had no idea.
Imagine.
The cartoon character. Is it Yosemite Sam? Yeah.
Yeah. To Yosemite National Park for a camping getaway. His 11-year-old son, Keene Freeman, was named after Freeman's beloved grandfather. And if you asked him, he would say Keene was his favourite. He saw so much potential in Keene that he had already put a great sum of money away for his future. But that future never came. Keene asked his father if he could go under the protective fencing to fill his canteen at the top of the waterfall. He was a brave kid. It's why Freeman loved him so much. He told him to be careful, and he left his sight as Freeman took in the beauty around him. There was a splash, and when Freeman turned to the sound, he was frozen in shock. He was paralysed as he watched his son's head bob in and out of the water. A young man on the other side heard the noise and came running. He saw the boy in the water and dived in. He grabbed the boy but couldn't fight the current. He struggled to clutch the rock and keep hold of the boy, and all too quickly the waterfall took them down the 325-foot drop to the rocks at the bottom. Freeman watched every horrific part and had seen his boy's face as he fell. The brave man who had died trying to save the child was Orville Dale Lewis. Really good name. I love the name Orville.
Yeah.
He had recently been discharged from the Navy and was only 21 years old. God. Yeah, that's horrendous. After this, Freeman questioned his working in medicine and sunk into his grief. The trip they were on was to finish in South Dakota, at an asylum where Dr. Freeman would teach the staff how to perform lobotomies and perform however many he could while he was there. Freeman had to make Keene's death mean something, and so he carried on his journey. This became a road trip every summer. Freeman would travel in his van, which he dubbed the Lobotomobile. The Lobotomobile.
To the bottom of it.
To asylums all around America. He would perform on any patient he could, even people who didn't need one yet, as a premedicated... That's not the right word, is it? Premeditated measure?
Precautionary?
Precautionary. That's
that
the
one?
word.
Is that one?
Precautionary measure. In 1941, Freeman received a surprising phone call. A father who had a 23-year-old daughter who was ruining the family's reputation with her behaviour. The case was not surprising, but the client was. The man was none other than Joseph Kennedy, and he had arranged a lobotomy for his daughter, Rosemary. The sad story of Rosemary Kennedy really does start with her birth. Rosemary and Joseph's third child and first daughter, so I think it was JFK and Robert, or Robert then JFK then Rosemary, I think. They were the oldest two.
Yeah, I think Robert's the oldest. Yeah.
Robert's the oldest, yeah. So I think, she was the third. Her mother was ready to give birth, but no doctor was present, only a nurse, and she was not allowed to perform the birth. So instead, she instructed Rosemary Kennedy to clench and hold in her poor baby for 2 whole hours. Not a lot of evidence is found as to what the birth did to baby Rosemary, but it's hard to believe that a lack of oxygen for that amount of time wouldn't have some sort of effect. Imagine holding in a baby for 2 hours.
You wouldn't be able to. Even without doctors, if people know that they need to push for a baby, they would just do it.
Yeah, especially with a nurse there.
Yeah.
Mad.
Should be able to do something.
Have a baby. Just push.
Yeah, just do something.
Yeah, mad.
So you're in contractions for all that time. You finally get to the end where you can stop. You're like, no, could just carry for a
Could you
couple
just
of
hold
hours.
her in for 2 hours?
Imagine how, oh my god, would it just be one pure contraction then?
Just out in a second.
It would
'Cause,
all be there as well. It's not even in your stomach. She's ready to come out.
Yeah.
She's crowning and you're holding her.
No, I push.
You'd
I'd get
have
that
to.
baby out.
You'd
I
have
know
to.
what my body is telling
Your
you.
babies.
My baby's like, come on,
Your
let me
mini
out.
babies. Yeah, what you doing?
Push Mum.
Rosemary seemed to grow up as any other child in the eyes of her parents, until her siblings, one by one, seemed to surpass her with learning and cognitive skills. At 11, she was sent to a boarding school for the intelligently disabled, and at 16, she was sent to the convent of the Sacred Heart, where she received schooling away from other children, but she would end up running away. She did get out with her family on rare occasion and was presented to King George and Princess Elizabeth. She practiced her curtsy all day, but when the time came she tripped and almost fell. She carried on and the King and Princess smiled. She thought it a great success. Rosemary's mental state, however, just went from bad to worse, and by 22 she was having seizures, violent outbursts and convulsions. In her rages, she would lash out and hurt others. Eventually, Rosemary's behaviour became a problem. Her outbursts would happen at any time, but when she didn't get what she wanted, she would have a childlike tantrum, almost as though her brain had not developed since childhood. The reputation of the great Kennedy family was in jeopardy. Rosemary had her prefrontal lobotomy without her family's knowledge. Freeman led the procedure while Watts performed the surgery, and it was a complete failure. Rosemary was left unable to walk or talk for more than a couple of words. She was sent to St. Coletta, an institution in Jefferson, where she lived out the rest of her life. Her mother wouldn't come to see her for 20 years, when Joe Kennedy had a stroke and the truth started to come out. Her sister Eunice would become close with her and would later come up with the idea for the Paralympics. The public wouldn't fully know about Rosemary until the 60s, and the news of her lobotomy was not revealed until 1987. Rosemary passed away at the age of 86 in 2005. Dr. Freeman was obsessed with pictures. His love of photography stayed with him throughout his life. He took before and after pictures of his lobotomy patients to show the effects. They were very staged. The before pictures, everyone would be frowning, and after all, they would be smiling. If you see the pictures, however, the smile is there, but something always seems to be missing. Their eyes don't match. The pictures are eerie, and although easy to find, are hard to see. Freeman also had pictures taken while the procedures were being done. One such of a 12-year-old boy whose pictures are amongst the most well-known but incredibly graphic. The after picture where his eyes are completely bruised over is truly disturbing. Err a side of caution when Googling the subject. Or just don't Google it.
Yeah, just don't.
Just don't.
Do me, don't. Just don't do it.
Not only did Freeman have pictures taken of his patients, of course that wasn't enough, he also had videos taken. The patients would be filmed at their worst. They couldn't be touched and are crying or shouting. Nurses will reach out to them and they'll flinch away or get angry. For the catatonic patients, they are placed in a chair. The nurses will try and lift their heads to face the camera and lift their arms to watch them fall back down with no resistance. The next footage comes from a month after the lobotomy. The patients would be smiling, laughing, and some would have put on weight and be dressed in nice clothes. The nurses could hug them and even dance with them. And although thousands of lobotomies were being performed, only a handful of pictures and videos existed. Still, this was enough to convince too many people that this really was a cure for schizophrenia, a symptom of which they believed was homosexuality, hence why gay men were the second most commonly operated on, the first being women. A lot of them were brought in by their husbands complaining their wives did not fulfill their needs, another apparent symptom. And the proof that the lobotomy worked was all shown through these staged puppet shows. He also used footage to teach the world how to perform his invention with step-by-step videos. While not being filmed, Freeman would invite anyone who was interested to attend the procedure. He'd chew gum and talk to journalists while doing the surgery. They were shocked that he seemed to almost get bored and want to talk to them. Another time when Dr. Freeman so badly wanted a picture, he stopped midway through the procedure to pose, causing the ice pick to travel too far, causing a bleed that couldn't be stopped, and the patient was sadly lost.
What?
Was this when the journalists were there?
I think so.
For a picture and,
yeah, well, they were taking the picture, yeah.
Oh,
With the botched lobotomies growing in numbers, Freeman began to get impatient. Although he believed fully in lobotomies and that they cured severe mental illness, the surgery took up to an hour just for one patient, and usually the patient would need another lobotomy in the next year. This didn't work for Freeman. He wanted as many patients cured as possible, as quickly as possible. To speed up time, Freeman began encouraging his team to perform in non-sterile conditions. No gloves, no masks, no scrubs. And Freeman even once commented that washing his hands was a waste of time. Yeah, that sounds about right. This wouldn't surprise me if this still happened now.
No. I can't believe there's never a follow-up lobotomy. I thought it was one and done, which is terrible. It was bad enough. Could you come back next year, please? Yeah.
Sometimes it would be 3 months later, and they'd be like, no, you need another one. Hasn't worked.
Oh my fucking god.
Mad. Watts disagreed with the way Freeman did things. He was a fully qualified neurosurgeon and understood the dangers. He then started to question the lobotomies altogether. When the results caused so much damage to the patients it supposedly cured, not to mention the ones it didn't. Plus, new developments had been made in medicine that would open up other options for the mentally ill. Freeman would stay strong in his belief that lobotomies cured mental illness, and desperately searched for a new way to speed up the surgery. He found his path when he heard of a brain surgery that had been performed through the patient's eye sockets. All Freeman needed now was an instrument thin enough to pierce through a tear duct. And as luck would have it, one night when Freeman fetched himself and Marjorie a drink, Marjorie asked for ice. Freeman opened the kitchen drawer and held up the ice pick. the transorbital lobotomy could now be performed. Another problem with the prefrontal lobotomy and time was anaesthesia. Luckily, Freeman had a way to fix that when he got himself a portable electroshock machine. With everything in place and Freeman himself ready to perform the surgery, the time of the surgery would go down from an hour to less than 10 minutes. And so all he needed now was permission to perform on the patient himself as a non-surgeon. But incredibly, he was given the permission he needed, with one inconvenience. Freeman was not to perform the surgery himself in the hospital. This, though, didn't deter Freeman. He would set up a bed in his office or a hotel room, wheel the machine next to it, and perform the surgery right there. The refined, updated version of the lobotomy not only saved money and time, but resources as well, and Freeman truly believed it was going to be far more effective. And now he was ready to bring the new and improved lobotomy to the world. Watts was fully against Freeman's new idea of the transorbital lobotomy and forbade him from performing them. Again, undeterred, in January 1946, Freeman brought in his first patient to his office, a 63-year-old housewife, Alice. The woman was nervous and agitated. She needed slight convincing, but as ever, Freeman got his way, and without gloves, a mask, or any sterilisation, the woman was shocked into a seizure, and Freeman performed his first lobotomy. When the patient woke and Freeman had checked everything he needed to see from her, the procedure was deemed a success. He helped her down the stairs carefully out of sight of Watts or anyone who might spread the word. But of course Watts did find out what he was doing when one day he opened the door to their shared office and froze when he saw Freeman performing an ice pick lobotomy himself. He of course just had to leave since he could not risk the patient in the precarious state. Watts severed all ties with Walter Freeman. But this didn't bother Freeman. In fact, it gave him all the more freedom to make ice pick lobotomies more popular than ever. And it worked. Lobotomies became a popular treatment in America, with thousands of people undergoing the procedure. Around the end of the 40s, people started to come to their senses about the safety of the procedure. With so many patients dying or being left in a vegetative state, and the patients who were cured were never really the same. Many didn't care about anything anymore. They burnt food, which was a problem to the husbands who wanted better housewives. They'd be unresponsive, distracted, and they'd become addicted to food and put on a lot of weight. And worst of all, they'd suffer from seizures. The sheer speed in which Freeman performed these surgeries started to startle people. In a 2-week period in 1952, he did 228 lobotomies. In just one day, he performed 25, not moving from his place. A patient would come in, he would do the lobotomy in less than 10 minutes, then the next one would come in. He only stopped at 25 because his hand hurt and started to shake.
I bet he didn't wash anything. I bet he reused
He didn't wash his hands.
Oh no, but didn't you reuse the thing as well on different people's heads?
He might have wiped it, but he wouldn't have sterilised it.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Also in the 50s, a new schizophrenic medication came to the market. Thorazine? Of course, people would rather take medication than have their brains messed with. So with this and the scepticism, so began the downfall of lobotomies. Freeman then asked for permission to perform the procedure on children. Maybe not so shockingly at this point, he was granted it. One of his patients was 12-year-old Howard Dully. He lost his mother at 5 years old, and after his father remarried a woman named Lou, Howard started to rebel. At 12 years old, Howard Dully underwent a transorbital lobotomy. That's worse that it was the transorbital one through his eyes.
Yeah.
Just
fucking no.
Yeah.
But you're funny with eyes anyway, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, I hate it. Performed by Freeman. Howard didn't know what had happened to him until 3 weeks later when Freeman had told him about it. Howard didn't want to hear anything about it, being so young and confused. Howard's stepmother carried a dislike for Howard, and after visiting 6 doctors, 4 of which told her she was the problem, and 2 said he was a normal boy, she then met Freeman. Howard survived his operation and went on to have a long life, still being alive today and telling his story. and he always said that the surgery took part of him away. Freeman tried all he could to keep the popularity of lobotomies going. He would call on his patients even years after the procedure, hoping for a happy story, which of course he couldn't find. His patients never regained their personalities, it seemed. He even tried to persuade them to have another lobotomy. One such person was Helen Mortensen. In 1946, she was one of the first people to receive an ice pick lobotomy. After 10 years, she suffered a relapse and asked Freeman for a second lobotomy, which he obligingly performed. But once more, 11 years later, she begged for another one. This was 1967, and the lobotomy was no longer popular. There were many other ways to help schizophrenic patients, and of course they were seeing not all lobotomy patients even had the disease. Freeman decided to do the procedure, and it would be the last time he ever did. He cut too far, and Helen Mortensen started to bleed out. She died 3 days later, and Freeman's surgical privileges were revoked, and he went into retirement. He died May 31st, 1972, from cancer at the age of 76. In his lifetime, he performed around 3,500 lobotomies, most of them women, other gay men, and 19 of them were children, the youngest being just 4 years old.
Fucking hell, that is just a kid though, isn't it?
God.
Tiny little child who's just being naughty.
Yeah. Like, your parents, why would you even let that happen?
It must have been taken a lot of convincing, but I don't know. I don't know what it would take to. There's hair on me, it's driving me nuts. Take to put a drill through a 4-year-old's head.
I can't see it.
Maybe it's connected. It's probably my moustache.
Just shave a bit.
2,500 of these were ice pick lobotomies, and he lost almost 500 patients.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What, like from bleeding
Yeah.
out? Oh my god.
Yeah. 500. So the survival rate in general was like you had 15% chance of dying, which is huge.
That is a lot. You want it to be like 1%, if
Yeah.
that, and 0.5%.
Yeah.
He still kept his medical license for most of that.
I
His
know.
privileges. Well, not even much of a license
You'd
really.
think
is
that
it?
Rosemary Kennedy's one would be like the last straw for people, but
The number 500 that bled out and died. That's the straw
Do you know what,
that broke
that's
camel's back.
yeah, that's enough now, guys. People even reported that when a patient died on the table, Freeman would just walk out of the room. Many people have mixed emotions about Freeman and lobotomies as a treatment, but whatever we think of any of this, it's clear by the lack of consent needed for these surgeries that mentally ill people, homosexuals, and naughty children had a true lack of care at the time. Although this was a reason for a change in the rights that would protect these people, however, still the horrors of those asylums and the awful treatment would haunt a lot of memories. Still today in many places, such as much of America and England, lobotomies are still legal. However, thank goodness the procedure is hugely rare. The positive side to come from these poor people's suffering is the progression in neuroscience and the development of many treatments that do work for many people living today. There you have it.
Oh, bloody hell. Sorry, I'm doing that.
I bored you, have I?
No, I didn't know you were the whole time.
Rude.
Although, I've just suddenly crashed.
So, ew. That's fucking horrible.
I've just started to
horrific
feel a
stuff.
bit funny. When you're reading that out, I was a bit like, okay, just concentrate.
When I was writing it, I was like,
Concentrate.
Sammy's not going to do well with this.
I'm not very good with like gory stuff.
At all. Really bad.
I am.
I thought Terrifier 1 and 2, fine. Because when you told... first we're going through the tear duct, that I was like, that's horrible. And then we like go through the small portion of bone behind the eye. I was like,
Yeah, that's a
that
bit-
got me. I was like,
Oh.
oh my fucking
Yeah.
god.
I couldn't have watched a ice pick lobotomy.
No. Fucking hell.
Definitely couldn't.
So,
The other one was bad enough.
I'm assuming in the 50s and 60s you could just say you're a doctor and just do it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why he got permission. It was because he invented the whole thing.
Oh,
So you couldn't like just say, "Oh, I'm a doctor. I'm gonna pierce your head."
So there's a scientific revelation. They're like, carry on. You get there in the end.
Yeah.
I can't believe it took 500 odd people to die.
Yeah, and that's just his patients. There were 50,000 lobotomies done in that small space of time overall. And because he travelled everywhere in America to teach all asylums how to do it, they were all doing his procedure. So yeah, there was 50,000 of them.
And how is it still legal now?
I don't know.
Because there's no proven, positive outcome.
I mean,
really.
there's some. There's some people that it worked for. There was this housewife who was interviewed years later with her husband, and it seemed to work for her.
Yeah, but what was wrong with her to begin with? Was
complete depression, couldn't stop crying, couldn't get out of bed. It wasn't schizophrenia, which was what it was meant to be used for, but it was just severe depression.
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't that she was not that mentally ill.
Yeah.
So maybe it would work for those. But if you've got schizophrenia and then you're having an ice pick put in your eyeball, I don't see.
No.
I mean, that might make matters a bit worse. But now with a lobotomy, that we had to do a full brain scan, find one bit of your brain which has probably got an issue with it, and then they can figure it out from there. But not back in any draw a dot here, there.
Yeah, let me just drill into your brain. We'll find out.
The oil part.
Yeah, would
that bothered me so much.
Would have been like whale oil or what kind of oil?
It's got a certain name to it, but it's basically an oil that shows up on X-rays.
Oh, that's what
I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, I said it in one of my previous episodes. I can't remember what it was called.
I cut it because I couldn't pronounce it.
Yeah. What story did I did a previous episode and I had to say that.
What you would have used that for, which story?
Well, you could press dumbfounded.
Huh?
I'm dumbfounded. I don't know what you meant. But anyway.
Yeah.
Oil on the brain, not a great idea.
No, not fun. Not fun indeed. Well, just making a hole in your brain is probably not a good idea either.
So I've learned a lot today because I've never actually looked at lobotomies ever.
No.
But I've heard the word. And I always thought it was up through the nose.
Oh.
Which, that sounded disgusting enough. But now I've learned it's this.
I didn't know it was on both sides. I thought it was one hole, and then they did something to it, but I did not know it's both sides and then going straight through it. That's... Yeah.
I don't even think I knew what, it was. Because I know the shock therapy thing. I have my head that...
I've seen the pictures of that when they've electrocuted someone because it helps them, apparently. I feel like all these people need to be looked into a lot harder. I think they're all, real evil people.
Yeah.
Maybe ex-Nazis who got jobs somewhere else.
They would have loved that.
Oh, they would have been all
Nazis
over that.
would have loved a lobotomy.
Yeah.
But I think what's missing here is that they don't consider these mentally ill people, even when they're not mentally ill, gay men are not mentally ill.
That's
But they don't treat them like humans. It's like they're just ill, and that separates them from everyone else.
Yeah.
It is absolutely horrendous. But I do think that he did it to cure people. But I think that he went fame crazy and had to do it his own way.
Yeah.
Because if you kill 500 people and nothing inside you questions that, then...
yeah. Even just one person, you'd feel so bad. You're like...
Yeah.
I ran over a mouse before. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's
Go
awful.
to hell. I think as well, the logic behind it, of all the treatments, how they expect it to get better. Let's just hose you down with freezing cold water and leave you to
there's other
freeze there.
No,
do these doctors not know you need a warm bath? It's probably the most calming, nice thing you can ever have to make you feel good.
It was always cold. I don't know where the idea that cold water helped aggression. They just hose them down when they started to get angry. Guess what? That makes them angry.
Yeah, it's going to make me angry.
I mean, the only version of that could help is if we got cold water swimming. Because that's meant to help you.
That is a therapy, isn't it?
That's an actual exercise, isn't it?
You're meant to have a cold shower as soon as you wake up, and then it starts you for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, nah.
It's not fantasy.
Not for me.
I love a cold shower. Thank God, because I haven't had a boiler for a week.
Yes.
I do love a cold shower.
Have you ever done the test where you have a warm shower and you're all right, as cold as you can go and see how long you can stand there?
Yeah.
And I remember my mate's dad, he was like, yeah, that's piss easy. I'll be able to stand there all day long.
I could.
And he come out of the shower, he's like, 5 seconds.
I've
done it. I'm like, oh my god, I can't. I'm good at swimming in the sea, I can just go straight in the sea, fine.
Yeah.
But cold shower, I'm like, nah, it's a happy place.
Yeah.
Cold shower. Freezing cold.
No.
Filling the bath with freezing cold water and putting your feet in. Oh,
No.
Love it.
No.
What?
Love it.
No.
Love it.
No, I love warm and cosy things.
So not lobotomy then.
No, it's not for me. Not for me,
You
mate.
sure?
I'm sure, thank
I'm
you.
going to test it next week.
Alright.
Yeah,
Stay tuned to find out.
Where'd you get an ice pick from? Proper job, B&M?
Yeah, probably.
It's probably in my first lobotomy kit somewhere.
My first lobotomy kit.
So that's fine. I'll have to look this up though because I need to see this.
Yeah, you're a sick fuck.
I am sick, but I'm very.
I got it.
I got it.
Oh yeah. Tiny white hair.
It's a tiny Shelby hair it's been on my lip for about half an hour.
If yours Tamsin has an elephant ring, I just imagine in the print if you hit someone with that thing. That would be so cool.
That's not how you punch.
No.
Just what? Like a 50s one, a wide order. Pow!
Should have
Show
punched
him
the
a king or
Batman.
Right in the kisser.
Oh yeah.
Slapped an elephant wearing this forehead.
That'd be funny. Yeah. Nice.
Oh, we could do like a presentation of what to get because we've got skull coasters for people who are watching. So basically, you made the incision right
It's
there,
not like we've got our own heads that Tamsin actually used our own head to tell you where it was.
there, and then on top.
It's
And
not
then-
quite 3D, so.
No, this person's got other issues. We mean to squash their.
Oh yeah, he's a skull.
Yeah, he's dead.
He's got no skin.
And he's
That's
a
an issue.
coaster.
Yeah, let's go and try on a live patient.
And he's made of wood.
Also, squeamish people, cover your ears for like 20 seconds. Have you seen it? It's when they've have you seen the pictures where they do brain surgery and they fold your face over its own
Oh.
face?
Oh my god, I haven't.
That's
I haven't.
the work because it's eyelids, eyebrows, everything, and it's just bare skull.
There's something so creepy about just ripping skin. Like when you see it in a movie, they do it in Terrifier 2, I think. I
Yeah.
think they might do it with both of them.
Yeah.
They rip their skin off. It's just like, oh my god. There's a film where they do their whole arm where he rips, I can't think what it is, but he ripped like his arm off. So it's just like a muscly arm left.
There's that she does it in the one who's like she's like stuck on the bed because her husband has a heart attack and
Yeah.
then falls off the bed.
Oh, Gerald's game.
This wasn't Gerald's Game. It was Haunted of Hill House.
Yeah.
But is it Gerald's Game? Is that
Mhm.
what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was called something else. But have you seen that?
I've seen some of it, yeah.
Yeah.
I know the story.
Yeah, he's just like she has to try and get all these handcuffs and her hand is like
Oh yeah.
Yeah, have you seen that when people like they just...
oh, so cringy.
I'd never get out of handcuffs.
No.
Please. I've got some massive hands.
Yeah, mine are too chubby.
Yeah, way too
Chubby
chubby.
cream
It's just
sausages.
Not going to happen.
The other one of that is Silent Hill. You know when the Pyramid Man grabs a woman and just grabs her like
yeah.
flesh and just.
Yeah. Oh look, yeah.
That
That's a
is-
beautiful moment. That is.
is absolutely sad. That was one of the parts in like a film. I was so shocked to happen. I was like, that is so out of context. Just this massive zombie dead pyramid man in purgatory.
As much as I'm loving this conversation,
Yeah.
can we not?
Oh, okay.
Do you remember the part where
So basically, grabs your skin, rips it sideways.
really hot? Okay, let's talk about something now. Flowers. Somebody's gonna fall.
Butterflies.
Actually, we will be talking about flowers soon.
Oh no. Yeah, you'd be cheered up. I do like my Thursdays just talking about death.
It's great.
Thursday.
Yeah, we
Should get you some fresh air, my dear.
I need some fresh air, so should we wrap this episode up?
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. Sorry if it made you feel sick, like Sammy.
I need a minute. Yeah, thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next week.
Woohoo! Thanks.
Bring a vomit bucket.
Bye.